I, 33 male, met my wife, 31 female, 8 years ago on a dating app. At the time, neither of us was looking for anything serious. We were both young and we wanted to make the best of our youth while we could. But then we fell for each other and all of that went out the window. We wanted to be with each other all the time and things quickly got serious. I knew before she and I even met that my wife was polyamorous. At the time, it wasn't something I cared much about. I just went into our relationship thinking it was going to be a casual, fun time. I was definitely curious about what that was and how that worked in her life. But personally, I've always been monogamous. My wife told me one day when things started to get serious that for the first time in years, she was only thinking about one person and that was me. There was a bit of a disconnect between us when we first started exclusively dating because I felt like I was taking something away from her through monogamy. However, she assured me that it was what she wanted. We had some ups and downs and we were able to work it out to be together. Eventually, I proposed to her and we got married. Some of the people in my family were not at all understanding of polyamory and they were practically betting that I would end up getting divorced. Before I was with my wife, I didn't know much about it and I might have thought the same thing. But she explained everything to me in such a way that I understood what it was and I trusted that should she ever have any issues with monogamy that she would come to me and we could talk about them. About 3 years into our marriage, I got the opportunity of a lifetime for work. It required me to travel abroad for 3 months to do some on-site filming for an advertising agency. They were pretty much paying me to travel all over Asia and visit some of the best tourist sites and take pictures. All expenses paid, hotels, meals, airfare, everything you can think of. After a long discussion with my wife, we decided that it was too good of an opportunity to pass up and I agreed to take it. Of course, that meant that she would be alone back home while I was away, except for 1 week when she would be meeting me in Tokyo since our schedules aligned. I said goodbye to her and I set off on my grand adventure. I had a great time. Every night I would FaceTime with my wife and we would catch up. I had no fears that anything was going to happen while I was away. One night, I called her for FaceTime around 5 p.m. While I was in Thailand, that was around 8 a.m. in our time zone. Our typical call schedule had been just like that. I would call her in the evening when I got finished with all of my things and she was usually drinking coffee in the kitchen when I did. However, this time she didn't answer. At first, I figured that she must have slept late or forgotten to set her alarm, but deep down I knew that was not like her at all. She had always been the kind of person to wake up at 7 a.m. on the dot, without even needing an alarm to do so. Still, I didn't suspect that she was with someone else. I just texted her and told her that I missed her and loved her and I would give her a call the next morning since we would both be busy and or asleep. When I was finally able to get on the phone with her again, I asked her about what happened. It wasn't an accusatory question. It was more of curiosity since it just wasn't like her. She got defensive with her answer. She made it sound like I was insinuating something when I wasn't by any means. I ended the call before an argument started. That was the last thing I wanted while I was trying to enjoy myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her reaction that I didn't know about. Eventually, we made up and everything was fine leading up to her visiting me in Tokyo. She got off the plane and I was at the airport to pick her up. I was excited to see her. She was my wife and I loved her and I missed her. It had only been 2 weeks since I last saw her, but the first thing I wanted to do was just go back to the hotel room and be intimate with her. When we got there, she told me she wasn't in the mood because she was a little bit jet-lagged from the flight. I completely understood where she was coming from, so I didn't want to pressure her into doing anything. So we both just laid down and talked for a while. Throughout the rest of the week, every time I would try to initiate something with her, she would come up with a reason to reject it. Whenever she would end it, I wouldn't ask any questions or try to pressure her to give me answers about why she didn't want to sleep with me. It did strike me as odd because she has always been the type of person who was very eager to have intimacy. The Tokyo trip ended for her and I still had 1 week left on my journey. It flew by and I couldn't wait to get home because I could feel that there was some distance growing between my wife and me. Everything seemed normal when I got there, but she still wasn't wanting to sleep with me. After the first couple of days I was back, she started staying late at work and it honestly felt like she was actively avoiding me. At that point, I had let a lot of my insecurities about what was going on with our relationship pile up, and I confronted her about it when she returned home. She told me that I was being obnoxious with my accusations. In fact, she ended up guilt-tripping me for why she was staying late at work. She told me it was because she had to take time off work to visit me in Tokyo, as I pressured her to do. We got into a huge argument about that, and I ended up sleeping on the couch. Just the following day, which happened to be a Saturday, she told me she had to go to work for some last-minute troubleshooting at the office. In all the time we had been together, she had never worked a Saturday. I think it was at that point that I really thought something was going on. All the time that we had been together, we had never had any issues with her polyamory, but as soon as I started to think that something was wrong, it popped its head right up. I couldn't help but wonder if she had taken advantage of the time that I was gone and slept with another person. For a while, I convinced myself that I was just exaggerating and purposefully trying to hurt my feelings by thinking things like that. I distracted myself by trying to clean up some of the house. As I was looking under our bed to pull out any old clothes or trash, etc., I found a sock. It was only one sock, but it wasn't mine, I knew that, and it wasn't the type of sock that my wife wore. It was someone else's sock who didn't live in my house. That was the push that I needed to seriously consider that my wife was in fact cheating on me. I went to her office and looked through her desktop to see if there were any indications of who it was with or what she was doing while she was supposedly at work. There was no indication from any of her recent emails that she needed to go into the office for any reason, so that helped me realize that she had already lied to me. Her inbox seemed clean, but when I looked over her desktop and clicked on her recycle bin, I found some pictures and videos that she had deleted but hadn't cleared. My heart completely sank when I saw that. I recognized the man in the pictures right away. He was one of her coworkers. I had met him a few times at company gatherings, and I always thought he was a bit chummy with my wife. I would make jokes about it with her, and she would just laugh it off with me and tell me that he was married too, so I had nothing to worry about. I guess they both saw a prime opportunity to cheat on their partners while I was out of town. I emailed myself the evidence and immediately began looking for a divorce attorney. Right away, I started thinking of a way to get back at both of them for their betrayal. Knowing that my wife was cheating on me with one thing, but the fact that she was cheating on me with a married man and ruining 2 relationships knowingly was like a slap in the face. I looked her coworker up on social media and found his wife pretty easily. I sent her a message asking if we could set up a time to speak face to face since I had some news to share about her husband. She probably assumed the worst right away, but she agreed to meet me at a cafe. I saw her world crumbling when I told her, and I felt terrible. I felt the exact same way. I didn't want to let either of them just get away with their affair when they ruined both of our lives. I needed to come up with some way to get back at them. I spent the next few weeks pretending like everything was all right with my wife, and I encouraged the partner of her coworker to do the same. We both planned on leaving our spouses, but we wanted to get everything in order first. Both of us were going to surprise them with our divorce papers on the same day, so neither of them would have time to prepare. When everything was done, I brought my wife out to a lovely restaurant. She thought I was surprising her with a nice date. Toward the end of the meal, she asked me what prompted the gesture, so I figured I might as well tell her. I pulled out the papers and slid them across the table to her. She was shocked and hysterical. She tried to contain herself, but really it was quite the scene. Other diners were watching us while she started crying. I explained why and told her I saw the pictures and I wasn't going to be with a cheater. She tried to tell me I was misinterpreting them and that she hadn't cheated, but I didn't believe it. I just left the restaurant, leaving her to pick up the bill. We got divorced and now we're living separately and have no contact with each other at all. Funnily enough, her coworker's wife actually messaged me one day and asked to get together. We kind of hit it off. Things are still complicated because the wounds are so fresh, but there could be something there. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. It isn't unheard of for a polyamorous person to agree to monogamy when they fall for a certain person, but not everyone adjusts to that lifestyle. If she was so quick to take advantage of the opportunity when you were out of town, it makes me wonder if it was the first time or not. You did the right thing by telling the affair partner's spouse. She had the right to know that her husband was cheating as well. I'm glad you feel like you're building another connection with someone, but I would be careful not to jump into something else so fast. Especially with someone who just went through the same thing, you could form some kind of trauma bond, and that would be toxic. Now, let's move on to our next story. When I, a 27 male, met my fiancée, 25 female, 4 years ago, I knew right away that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. She was everything that I had been looking for. We'd only been dating for a year when I proposed. We've been engaged for 3 years. The long engagement has caused some trouble for us. One of the biggest issues is that she wanted to plan her dream wedding, which subsequently would cost us quite a bit of money. I've never been one to care about superficial things like that. I would be more than happy going to the courthouse, signing some papers, then spending all of the wedding money on our honeymoon. However, she had always dreamt of her big day and she wanted a big wedding with no compromise. It felt like every other week the budget we set aside for the wedding had increased, or she was telling me that she had gone over and was apologizing for it. At some point, I noticed that her apologies were meaningless because she continued to go over. We were getting into a lot of arguments and there was a bit of resentment brewing between us. I'd had enough of her constant disregard for the financial constraints of the wedding, so I sat her down intending to have a calm, reasonable conversation with her. She was immediately very defensive and told me that she wasn't sure if she could be with someone who was controlling. I was upset that she had accused me of being controlling when all I was doing was standing up for myself when she was taking advantage of me. After the fight, she ended up leaving and staying at her friend's house for a week while we figured things out. Honestly, I thought it might have been the end for us. I was heartbroken. She was my dream girl and I cared so much about her. She eventually came back and we had a long discussion about the wedding. We both agreed that we still wanted to be together, but we needed to set some boundaries. We also agreed that we would move forward with what we had for the wedding and halt all further planning. That was the only compromise on the issue I would allow since we were already over budget by 50% and had 150 people invited. We fell back into our old patterns with each other and it seemed like our temporary break and discussion actually helped our relationship. The wedding was only a few months away and we were doing well. As we got closer to the wedding date, some of the stressors started to come back for us. My fiancée's coping mechanism with the stress was to throw herself into her work. She's a graphic designer and very creatively inclined, so it helped alleviate the stress. So instead of being home with me, she was at work. She started spending more and more time at work. It felt avoided, which was unlike her. I was curious about why she was there so much, so I asked her one night when she came home. She just told me that it was a good way to escape and forget about all of it. I didn't understand why she still wanted to go through with the huge wedding, if it was stressing her out so much, but I didn't ask about that. Around the same time, I noticed that she was wearing more makeup and more revealing clothes to work. I had nothing against her dressing in a way that she felt confident, but she normally wore long pants, boots and sweaters to work because she was always complaining about how cold she was while she was there. Suddenly, she was wearing sleeveless blouses, showing cleavage and skirts. It was odd. I tried not to worry about it, but honestly, I've seen a ton of those Am I the Jerk videos and stories exposing cheaters, so a lot of the things she was doing were raising red flags for me. I needed to find out if something was going on before the wedding. I didn't want to be married to her and then find out she was with an ex or something after we were legally attached. I did some snooping on my own, but didn't find anything. One thing I've always known about liars is that they're good at hiding their lies. So I justified hiring a private investigator to follow her. I reached out to someone who specializes in infidelity, and they agreed to take the case. I could only afford to pay them for a few days because the wedding was depleting a lot of my savings. The first day, they didn't find anything. She went to work and went home with no issue. I thought that maybe I was overreacting, but my gut told me not to call the private investigator off. The next day, I was glad I trusted my gut. My fiancée texted me about midway through the day that she would be staying late at the office. She said that she was helping a coworker with some excess work they had before a due date. However, the evidence the private investigator brought back to me told a different story. They emailed me over a file with videos and pictures of my girlfriend with her boss in his office. They were having sex right on his desk, while other employees were in the office. I just remember staring at the computer screen until it turned itself off. I was so shocked by what I saw. When I collected myself, I started to think about my options. There was absolutely no chance I was going through with the wedding, but I needed to figure out how it ended. I wanted a little revenge on her for cheating on me. An idea hit me, so before I acted on it, I packed up some of my stuff and texted my brother to see if I could stay with him. When I got to his house, I drafted an email to our entire wedding guest list. In the email, I told them all it was cancelled and attached the evidence of my fiancé's affair. Surprisingly, I got several responses back from relatives, coworkers, and friends about it. What surprised me the most, which I didn't even realize at the time, was that my fiancé's HR manager was on the list. She reached out to me and asked about details because it was something she was obligated to act on because it was clearly on company property. I told her everything I knew. My fiancé figured out I was with my brother and came to his house, banging on the door. She was fuming at me, but I stood my ground and ended it. I told her I was contacting the venue, vendors, and everyone else involved in the wedding and having all of my money refunded to me. I felt bad when she was crying in front of me, but then I remembered how she cheated on me and I didn't anymore. She and her boss were both fired for their inappropriate relations on the job. She tried to call me and tell me that I was still obligated to pay for the apartment even though I didn't live there, but I managed to work something out with the apartment complex to pay for 1 month and get off the lease. I think they were just willing to work with me because of the situation. My now ex-fiancée was forced to move out because she lost her job and couldn't afford rent on her own because she dumped what little she had in savings into a wedding that never happened. OP, I'm sorry you had to go through something like that. It sounds like your ex was manipulating you from the start when she wasn't respecting your budget for the wedding. I'm not saying you were wrong for following your heart and proposing so early, but it's usually best to spend some time with someone before proposing to avoid situations like that. People tend to hide the less desirable qualities of themselves early on. I'm glad you were able to get out of the relationship and your lease so you didn't end up marrying her. You saved yourself a lot of stress by avoiding the inevitable divorce. I wish you the best moving forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. On the 1st of December, I got the news I was dreading. All of the tests have confirmed the diagnosis. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So basically this will be my last holiday season. I am awk with what is going to come. I am at peace with that. I have had a life well lived. All of my loved ones will be taken care of. I am naturally a private person, so my wayward wife, Jane, is unaware of my tests. I did not want to worry her until I had answers. So I headed home early to have the talk. This is not something I wanted to do over the phone or by text. Well, as you can guess, since I am here, my life changed more than once that afternoon. When I arrived at the house, I noticed the car of one of my business partners in the drive. There was no mistaking it. Flashy expensive with a personalized license tag. To say this is out of the ordinary is an understatement. I pull up our home camera system on my phone and notice it is in privacy mode, not recording. So I let it be and drove off to my farm property. Now our camera system is for safety and I never look at it unless there is a concern. With that said, I also love to watch for wildlife on the outside cameras. I also find it oddly satisfying to watch storms come through. So for my own enjoyment, years ago I configured a second video recorder to archive the cameras to local storage. That storage is not accessible via my phone. So when I was at the farm, I opened up my computer and looked at the other server to confirm what my gut was telling me. And sure enough, there they were, snuggling in the living room, drinking wine, dancing, then going up to the bedroom suite. Apparently they left the doors open because the microphone recorded their activities after they left the camera view. With my limited time left, I wanted answers, but I didn't want the drama of a confrontation and divorce. Call me what you will. But all of my devotion and love for her left me that afternoon. I have all of the emotions that are to be expected. I know that I am not to blame. I have been a loyal, romantic, and attuned partner. I am now thinking about myself. I know what is important to me. So I called my lawyer and we reviewed my will and our prenup. I told him what was going on. We worked on an understanding of how long and to what extent this affair has been going on. What has been found is disturbing, and I either clearly did not know the woman I shared 2+ decades of life with, or something in her changed. At this time, I am not going to say anything to my kids, wayward wife, and I never had children or wayward wife. I am going to put on a stiff upper lip and get through the holidays. Give the kids and grandkids one last holiday memory with me involved. I will be the doting father and grandfather and then try to play the doting husband role. Some background for some of the obvious questions. AP is a widower and is not remarried. He is a business partner but not a friend. I do not invest with friends. I never married my twins' mother, male and female. It was her choice and I completely agree with her that at that time she made the correct decision. My kids' mother, Sarah, married a very wonderful man, Steve, when the kids were 7. Sarah and Steve never had kids of their own. I got my head out of my ass when the kids were 3. I have been very involved with them before that, but that is when I started my road to be the father I wanted to be. Sarah and I co-parented well together, and I would call Steve a friend. Sarah, Steve and I are in our 60s. Jane is almost 60. AP is in his 50s. Jane and I are both in our first marriage. We were in our 30s when we married. Update. First, I want to thank you all for all your support. It really has helped. I have read all of your comments and has given me a lot to think about. I'm going to give some general information to help clarify my situation. Sarah and I were very young when we had twins. They were a surprise but always wanted. So the twins are in their 40s and the grandkids are all teens and older. Christmas is a week-long affair every year. We spend Christmas through New Year on the farm. We go cut down a tree after everyone arrives. We decorate, cook, play and celebrate as a family. Sarah and Steve have been a part of this tradition since I bought the farm. I remain steadfast in not telling anyone until after the new year. If I told Sarah, she would not be able to keep it in. I don't want to place Steve in a position to lie to his wife. I want the kids and grandkids to enjoy the week. We will have plenty of time to cry and prepare in a few weeks. Jane's presence this week will just be a small detail in the long run. Really, I don't care about her anywhere near the rest of the family. The finances are very interesting. Jane and I met and were married after we both were very established in our job and wealth. She had a good job with a great pension. She also had 2 inheritances that were in a trust. We agreed early on that we were both comfortable and we would not disclose to each other our entire worth by her insistence. We also have a prenup where any property in trust that predate the marriage and any income from those resources are not considered marital property, again on her insistence. Now I have provided both properties, housing with utilities. I purchased the travel, food, and fuel. Basically, I support her 100%. Her income and wealth are spent by her only. She purchased her car, clothes, personal travel, and cosmetic surgery. She is a very beautiful woman on the outside but has shown she is very ugly inside. A few days after I got my diagnosis, I announced my retirement from the nonprofit. Now knowing what I know, I noticed Jane was a bit uncomfortable. I can guess why. I will be around more often. So tomorrow is my last day of work. Now I will be focusing on spending time with the family. I gave the camera server info to my lawyer and gave him access from his office. So I don't know if they had activities again, but I would assume yes. Again, I don't care at this point. I know who I am and what is my worth, and AP is a big step down. As flashy as AP is, I am low-key. I drive a 15-year-old pickup truck. I like jeans and t-shirts and coveralls in the winter. I know for a fact that AP does not have anywhere near the wealth that Jane thinks he does. How? Since the trust has invested in his business, I get quarterly financials. I don't tell anyone how much I have, that is between my accountants and me. But let's just say that the trust has been growing for 30 years. I live a modest life and there is enough there for my great-great-grandchildren to enjoy the farm and have their education paid for. Once Jane knows what she lost, that will be her reckoning. I just won't see it. December really got busy. We did our normal social rounds these last weekends. AP was at one of the parties. It was hard to not keep an eye on Jane and him. I don't think I was caught. With being so busy and wrapping up everything at the job, I have had an easier time keeping it together. Jane has not expressed anything that would lead me to conclude that she knows I know. I am not proud of this, but I still sleep in the same bed. I have been selfish with her as of late. I feel like I am using her, but she has apparently been using me for at least the better part of this year. I am not as honorable as many of you have made me out to be. I hate this small amount of deceit. So don't worry about Jane getting everything because she will not. The trust is in great hands. I have detailed instructions on how it is to be managed. Thanks to the comments, I have made plans in case my health turns for the worse sooner than I want or if I pass unexpectedly. I have also made plans to have in-home care when it is needed. Jane will not be my caregiver. If I become incapacitated, the lawyer will tell Sarah, Steve, and the kids. Jane will be blocked from me. All important papers, valuables, and whatnot have been moved to a safe location. Finally, I have also started letters to each family member and Jane. Those have been harder than I thought. So I wanted to update you all before all of the festivities start. I might check in during holiday week, but if I don't, it is planned and expected. Hey OP! I hope you have a fantastic holiday season with your family. Enjoy your time and make the most of every moment, both for yourself and for their lasting memory of you. If I were you, I'd pre-record a video that I would ask to get played during the funeral. In it, start by thanking everyone for attending, with the exception of Jane. I would then say something along the lines of, I left this world unloved by my own wife, and I ask that if she is in attendance that she does not attend my celebration of life following this video. I wish you all the best OP. Now let's get into today's second story. Hi there. I'm 40 years old. My wife is 35, and we've been married for about a decade. She and I started off with an amazing relationship. We waited to get married because she miscarried in a previous relationship. Eventually, I told her I wanted to get married, even if she couldn't have a child. We did, and 2 years later, we welcomed our daughter. Things seemed great, but the tension was there at first. Having a kid is exhausting, as you probably know. When our daughter grew up, she claimed that I wasn't giving her as much attention. I explained that she was a new mom and the breadwinner, and I had to make sure that everyone was taken care of. I was trying my best, but I could feel the resentment getting to her for a bit. For a few years, we worked it out. Eventually, our daughter grew up, and it got easier to have a relationship. Still, I felt like there was some strange animosity that came with this, even though I did my best to fix this and made accommodations for her as well. While we did try to make things better, there was still some tension there. Even though we did get past the tension before, something still felt off. When our daughter started school, my wife went back to work. I told her that she didn't need to do that, but she insisted that she wanted to for another reason. I'd been handling the bills, but I decided she was just being nice about it, so I brushed it off. She spent less time at home, which I found to be a bit weird. Our daughter was a little older, and I stepped up to be the one to take care of her. She would get home late sometimes because she told me she had to put a lot more time into the jobs that she missed so much. I found it weird, but I didn't try to. One night, we had a big fight over my daughter's grades. She accused me of not being there since I spent a lot of time at my own job. I called her out, but she called me narcissistic, selfish, and only caring about myself. I was shocked because she didn't seem to actively put effort into the relationship either. I was so confused. She became cold and a lot more distant. She was now more distant than before. I tried to make things better for both of us. I decided, hey, let me go to her workplace to surprise her. When I got there, she was gone. I called her to ask where she is. She told me about a restaurant nearby. I got there, but she was not there. She mentioned she changed her mind, and she went somewhere else. I asked where she and I wanted to meet up, but she said she couldn't say. She was not sure yet. At this point, I thought it was a bit strange. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt, though. She told me she's going to a work conference. I asked where I could bring my daughter. She hesitated, saying she was not sure yet. Now at this point, I didn't know what to believe, and my gut feeling said something otherwise. I decided to check her work email since it was open, and I found the hotel. I put a tracker on her luggage only to find out she didn't go to that hotel, but instead to another nearby. Why in the world would she lie about where she was going, and what hotel was she really at? Curious, I decided to follow her. I got to that hotel, and I figure out where she is from the tracking device that I used. When I got up there, I heard sounds of moans, and the like. I suddenly saw that the door is left open slightly, and that's when I found it. She was with another man. Tears of sadness and rage fell down my face, but I couldn't let her know just yet. I decided to wait for them to walk out. They do, and I walked down the hall. I told her that I know everything, that she'd been cheating on me with another man. She tried to lie, but I pulled out my phone, which records their voices. I asked her plainly what really happened. She then goes off to say that I'm not attentive to her needs, and that she wanted a divorce anyways. I got so angry, I told her that she shouldn't come home to see our daughter again. She confessed that this is a coworker, and that she'd been talking for a bit. She said that she'd been going out with him because he paid for her meals. She claimed that she only kissed him, but the sounds were there. I was furious, she had a child with me. She claimed that I was the only one for her. How could she do this to me? Afterward, I left, but not without uploading that footage of her confession to the cloud. I told her boss about it, that she cheated on me, broke a family apart, and put her own needs before her daughter's. They fired her. I kicked her out of the house. Everyone knows that she's a cheater, so I've made sure and have it known in everything possible. Since then, I don't know where she is, but I've been able to help my daughter recover. I stepped up, divorced her, and it's been 2 years. I've kept the details private from my daughter since she doesn't need to know, but since then, I've raised her, and I've done my best to provide the best life that I can, despite what her cheating mom did to me. Wow, OP, that's terrible. You had a kid too. I can't believe that people would throw away a relationship like that. Relationships are about trust, and she broke that, all because of a tough time and being unable to salvage that bond. I hope that the worst continues to happen to her, and that you and your daughter are able to move past this as well. I also think your daughter needs to know about the affair and what happened. She definitely deserves to know. I wish you all the best, OP. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. My wife, 38, and I, 47, were together for roughly about 17 years. About 14 of them were spent with us married. When we first met, I thought she was older than she was. It was just the mature aura she gave off. She thought I was younger, which at the time, did make me feel pretty good. After we decided that the age difference didn't matter, we went all in on the relationship. I was still a little hesitant about the age difference, but then I met her family. Her family was very big, bigger than mine. I'd always wished I had grown up in a close, tight-knit family. I'm the first to admit that her family, who welcomed me with open arms, is a huge factor in my continuing the relationship. She seemed just as crazy about her family as well. I took that as a good sign. A possible wife who thinks family is everything is a plus. The two of us went on to have a family of our own. 2 boys ages 8 and 11. During our marriage, things were good. We got along great, made memories with each other and our kids, and just enjoyed life. Anytime there were issues, we ended up working through them and persevering. I put my entire being in this relationship. Like I had hobbies as any married guy did. Hunting, fishing, and golfing were all things I loved, but after our kids came, I knew the focus had to be on our sons. Our wife didn't get the memo because she didn't hold herself to the same standards. My wife seemed focused on our marriage and family at first, but slowly she started to become a very shallow and self-centered person. She didn't put the kids first or even consider me. I tried my best to accept these behavior changes and keep putting the work into our marriage. It all came crashing down on Memorial Day of all days. I was getting the boys ready for the holiday party when I heard my wife's muffled voice from the bathroom talking to someone. My curiosity got the best of me and I ended up standing there listening. I couldn't hear who was on the other end of the phone, but I heard her. She was telling whoever she was on the phone with that she loved them, couldn't wait to be with them, and every day she spent with her husband, me, took a little part of her soul. So I waited for her to come out of the bathroom. When she realized I had heard what she said on the phone, she was in shock. My wife didn't say anything at first. I asked if she was cheating and she stuttered, trying to come up with some lame excuse. I told her to save it and walked out because I had a party to get to. My boys having a good holiday is what was my main focus. That was D-Day for me, and it's safe to say that the holiday is going to be sullied for me shortly. I'll never let my boys know because I want them to enjoy the holiday and spend time with family. The reason I still attended with my kids was to keep up appearances. It was very hard to keep a smile on my face, but again I did it for the boys. They will always be who I put first in all of this. My wife didn't go with us. She decided to go straight to the AP for comfort, ironically enough. When she finally came home from her AP, I asked her what happened. According to my soon-to-be ex-wife, I lacked passion and didn't show her any attention. I repulsed her, as she lovingly pointed out to me. She managed to say all of this while trying to butter me up with compliments about being a trusting husband, great provider, and father. I just was a terrible lover. However, she wanted to stay married and keep living in the marital home while remaining with her AP. I was shocked by that. My wife wanted her cake and to eat it too. She gets the stability of remaining with me and the apparent passion with this jerk she cheated on me with. Speaking of the AP, I knew the guy. He had been over to my house and I'd even hung out with him. The guy knew everything that was going on. I was busy working and coaching sports teams for our sons while she was screwing around with him behind my back. After the shock wore off, I realized I had to file for divorce. It should be done by the end of the year, which is getting closer and closer by the minute. She was against it and tried to convince me we could stay married. If not for us, then because of the boys. They deserve to be raised in a two-parent household. I'm not going to lie, I nearly burst out laughing when she said this. Was I tempted to do it for a moment, but then I realized it wasn't fair to my boys to do that. I didn't want to stay in a terrible relationship just for their sake. This wasn't something I wanted to emulate for them. If they ever, God forbid, found themselves in this position, then I would want them to retain some dignity and do what was best for them and their family. Besides, kids pick up on more things than we realize. I've learned this since my boy started therapy to deal with the situation. I'm also in therapy, before you ask, so don't worry. My mental health is also being worked on. When news of the affair reached our friends and family, it didn't go the way she expected. Her own family didn't rally around her. Instead, they rallied around me, which I cannot begin to say was a huge help in the healing process because I fear I might lose my in-laws in the divorce process. The funny thing is her boyfriend isn't allowed anywhere at her parents' house or any family functions, while my boys and I are more than welcome. She refuses to attend without the AP, so she and her family have no contact. I talk more to her mother than she does now. They used to talk 2 times a day, but now the contact is non-existent. For the holidays this year, my boys and I were gladly invited. I'm going to go, just not for the sake of my boys, but also because I enjoy being around the family. Recently, it seems that even our acquaintances are beginning to see through my wife's crap. There was a youth night at the high school football game that I attended with my boys. They get to go out on the field at halftime and get introduced to the team. She showed up there, but I already had a warning because she had texted me earlier that day. When she shows up, she marches over to her boys and starts taking pictures with them. I swear the moment she was done with the pictures, she left because her AP was performing at some dive bar. Is he any good? I have no idea, and nor do I want to know either. After my wife left, I had 4 different sets of parents come up to me and mention something about how she stayed just long enough to get her pictures for social media. It was hard not to burst out laughing. Let me tell you, it felt really good that people could see through her crap and that she's only playing up the mom of the year stuff for Instagram, Facebook, or whatever other social media she's on. We'll always have to remain in some contact because of our boys. One is still in the single digits, mind you. I'm just glad other people can see who she is, and when it comes down to it, she is going to put herself first and not me or the boys. In the meantime, I'll keep taking care of my boys and myself. I've started going back to the gym, picked up some of my old hobbies again, and reconnected with old friends. I can safely say I've never been happier. OP, let me tell you that you are on the right track. The most important thing you're doing is taking care of yourself, because if you aren't taking care of them, you can't help your boys. They need a father who is mentally there and healthy, because their mother is too selfish to be an option for them right now. Or at all, since it's her fault this situation is even happening in the first place. The fact that her family was willing to realize that their daughter did wrong is huge. So often the family of the cheater will end up backing them and accepting the AP. It's nice to see that for once this was not the case. You truly did handle this well, even though it might have seemed tempting to not divorce and just keep the status quo. You didn't. Once the fog from the affair wears off, your wife might try to warm her way back in. Keep remaining as strong as you have been for the sake of yourself and your boys. Now let's move on to our next story for today. My wife 28 and I 35 got together about 8 years ago. We married 4 years into the relationship and I thought everything was great between us. Our love life was great and we were always being romantic. The two of us frequently went on dates and never neglected that part of our lives. Sometimes married people can fall into a slump, but I swear that wasn't us. Sure, we had the rare fight, but they were over within a few hours. We'd make up so fast that it was like we almost hadn't fought in the first place. When I described her to people, I would say she was the love of my life, because I truly believed that she was. She was everything I ever wanted in a partner. Naturally, I thought she felt the same way, because why wouldn't I? My wife never gave me any indication that there was a problem in our relationship. People tend to say that they saw signs or cracks along the way, but I swear I saw nothing. Everything did seem almost perfect. After my wife joined a volleyball club in February, things started to change. I didn't bat an eyelash at first. She had played it in high school and wanted to pick it up again. Twice a week for 3 hours she'd go down to the center to practice. During that time I missed her, but if she wanted to do this, then I was more than happy to support her. She always supported me in my hobbies, so there was no reason why I wouldn't do the same. I think the moment I realized something was wrong was when she began to hide her smartphone from me. She never did that before. We never had secrets from each other and had no problem with the other using each other's phones. So when she went to the bathroom in the evening and forgot to take it with her, I checked the phone. What I found was a punch in the gut. In a conversation with a teammate, I found many messages. When I confronted her, she grabbed the phone and deleted the text. My wife cried that it meant nothing. They had gone for several walks over the months and kept spending time together, but it was nothing. He did try to kiss her once, but she rebuffed him. They were just friends, but she realized that she had done wrong by seemingly encouraging the relationship with him. My wife begged me for a chance and to trust that nothing happened. Silly me was still deep in the fog, so I agreed to forgive her that night. Even though I agreed to forgive her, it was difficult. I constantly asked my wife where she was, what she was doing, and who she was with. I even began to track her Google data, where I found a couple of 15-minute stops near a tire store. For some time she had been stopping there after work and then driving home. I started to realize something was up after she was an hour late for an appointment. So I did the only thing I could think of. I followed her one day. What I found was her in his car, and the second she saw me, she jumped out of the car. She said that the only reason she met with the guy was to tell him to leave it alone. This made no sense to me. Why would you go through all that effort to meet him in public? You could tell him that over text or phone call. Naturally, I thought she was full of crap, so I called the guy and confronted him. It was there I learned that this guy, who still lived with his parents, mind you, had been meeting with my wife for weeks. They claimed it was nothing sexual. All they would do is meet at the tire shop, talk, and then go their separate ways. Once again, she tried to claim that it was a mistake and she loved it. It means nothing is her favorite thing to say. My wife has said she will do whatever it takes to repair our relationship, but if this was the case, then why is she still in volleyball where she continues to see this guy multiple times a week? It was at that point I started to come out of the fog. Once I began to confront her, the truth came out. The two of them did have sex, and not only that, they did it right in the parking lot. For weeks she had been lying to my face and sleeping with this guy almost every day. Truly, I had been naive to think that nothing intimate was going on between them. Of course she would try to lie and say it was not physical. If I knew it was physical from the beginning, I never would have even thought of giving her another chance, because that is just a line you don't cross in my book. I think realizing that she sees him every day and continues to lie to my face is what helped me realize I needed to start the divorce process. This caught her off guard because she didn't think I'd have the guts to push for a divorce and finally leave her. Tears came, but I remained strong. My wife's tears weren't going to have any sway this time. She was going to have to face the consequences for what she had done to not just me but also used as a whole. No longer could she have the best of both worlds. Once I filed for divorce, she ended up moving out of our shared property and into errant apartments for the most part. Her AP is an unemployed driver who still lives with his parents who will not allow her to live there, so she had no choice but to seek temporary housing arrangements. She is a teacher, so her income isn't the greatest. I don't know what she will do when she runs out of money to afford these temporary housing arrangements. However, now that we are close to a divorce, I realize that it is not my problem. Maybe she'll manage to land on her feet, or maybe she won't. I just need to realize it's something I do not have to or need to worry about. Let her AP worry about it since he's so amazing. A lot of her things are still in our shared home. Even now she'll try to say that there is no life without you and she wants to get back together. Months ago this would have swayed me, but now I just gray rock. Her words do little to sway me. I see how frustrated she gets when I don't have a reaction, and honestly, it feels good. I've managed to pick up the pieces and have filled my life with friends, sports, and hobbies, and am even considering furthering my education. Was it easy to pick up the pieces of my life after learning of my wife's affair? No, but I remain steadfast and determined to put myself first. Looking back, I still can't see many signs or pinpoint where it went wrong. I guess she was just good at hiding it. Either way, it doesn't matter because our relationship is done. She can remain with her unemployed AP. Maybe his parents will finally take pity on her and let her stay. If they don't, then I can honestly say it's not my problem if she can't find a place to stay. She lost my sympathy when she decided to go outside our relationship and cheat on me. The moment she did that, she was undeserving of anything from me other than anger and resentment. I first want to say well done to how you stuck to your guns and managed to push forward despite all the pain you were feeling. You deserve a woman who loves you and is committed to a relationship with you. Wasting time on a selfish woman like that is going to do nothing but bring you down. My one piece of advice is to start packing up all her possessions. Tell her she has so long to pick them up or you will dispose of them. It may sound harsh, but all these items of her are going to be nothing more than a reminder of her. Also remember that the best revenge is living your best life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark. I hope you all are having a fantastic day or evening. In today's story, OP found out his wife cheated on him with her boss after he saw some crazy texts of what they did in his car. The OP is planning on getting revenge by exposing the affair to everyone. Now let's get into today's story to find out what happened. We were a couple of 4 years in our early 30s, living together with no children. There were some issues with sex and intimacy. I wanted her to go to therapy because she was struggling with her emotions and speaking about them, but she was too scared. The last time we kissed was in July and she just wasn't there. From that moment, her attitude changed. She became distant and impatient. 2 weeks later, we had a night out with friends after work and she brought her boss along. That was the first time I met the guy and he told me that I seemed friendly, but we were playing on 2 teams because he fancied my GF. When I spoke to my GF about it, she acted surprised and assured me nothing was going on. She became even more distant and hostile. I tried to get through to her, but she would get angry and gaslight me, claiming I was imagining things. I decided to make more effort and take her out more often, but her mind was always somewhere else. Then on our holiday trip, she told me that she didn't feel anything the last time we kissed and that there was no desire for me, but it didn't mean she wanted to break up. We decided to continue the conversation after the trip. When we got back, I noticed she became glued to her phone. She did more activities not involving me. I was still in denial. One Friday, she texted me that she was going for a beer with her boss. When confronted, she only said, "You want me to ask for permission?" It was just a beer. She broke up with me 2 days later. I said that I felt like we could work through our issues with couples therapy and if she went to therapy herself. She started having doubts about the breakup and said she would look for a therapist. When I asked if she met someone, she admitted to texting her boss a lot. He was hitting on her and it boosted her ego. He'd also invited her to join him on his holiday in Croatia in October. She wasn't planning to go. I was angry, but believed her. When emotions settled the next day, I felt like that story just didn't add up. So I checked her messenger and it turned out to be a full-blown affair. She detailed everything to her 2 closest friends. It lasted a month. They kissed each other a few times and went on numerous dates. They agreed he would follow her lead and she would set the boundaries. She considered it might be just a temporary crush but wanted to see where it led. Dates and kisses were initiated by her. She said to her friends that it would be a shame if they didn't have sex. She was seriously considering going with him on that trip. They were making out in his car outside her flat and at work. She bragged to her friends that she finally got a romance at work type of story and how exciting it was. My view of her shattered. In the conversations, she acted like a teenager having the first crush in her life. They had a date planned on the day my aunt died and she complained to her friend she had to cancel because of that. I even helped her buy him a gift on our trip which was supposed to be for her friend. It hurt like hell. And man, her friends disgusted me. They cheered her on telling things like, "I envy you and the butterflies in your stomach. Take what you can from this and don't tell your boyfriend." One of them even offered to cover for her so she could go to Croatia with him. They never mentioned that it was wrong and she could lose her job. I also saw live how she wrote to her friends that the breakup with me was probably a big mistake and that we would most likely get together soon, but she needed therapy to figure things out. She also set up a meeting with her boss 4 days after our breakup. I was never cheated on and I thought that physical stuff would hurt the most, but wow, was I wrong. It was the lies and manipulations and how easy it was for her. The cruelty of stuff she did and said. I wanted to believe she was lost. The decision to go to therapy seemed genuine, but so much of the stuff I read seemed calculated. On the evening of D-Day she was in tears and asked if we could talk because she felt like the breakup was a huge mistake. I said we could talk in 2 days. I needed time to gather my thoughts and see my therapist first. I also wanted to get all things out of her apartment before that. Part of me still loved her and hoped she will want to change and fight for us, but deep down I knew there was no going back from some of this shit. It will stay in my head forever. I didn't think she was all evil, but now I discovered a part of her that was disgusting. I wanted to know why and I hoped that when the whole thing was uncovered she would offer me the truth since it would be most likely the last time we would ever speak. When we finally met she said how she wasn't sure about her feelings and what she wanted. That she needed time to figure it out with the therapist. I straight up told her I read all her texts. I asked why she didn't tell me when I gave her so many chances and she said not to hurt you and because I was ashamed. It was a rationalization of course, which made me angry. She was supposed to confess after we would get back together. I of course said it was bullshit because she knew I wouldn't want to fix stuff after that. Questions about details made her at times. She tried to lessen the whole thing. She explained that she felt wanted and finally something was happening, but it wasn't worth it in the end. She claimed she didn't really mean some of the stuff she wrote. She didn't want to have sex with him or go on that trip. She wasn't even sure if she liked him. I asked why would I believe her and not my eyes, and she said that she didn't know why she wrote that stuff and felt ashamed. She also said it was her biggest mistake in life and that she felt like trash for hurting me and regretted not going to therapy sooner and that I deserved someone better. I agreed. She apologized. I asked how she could be so dumb as to risk her job and she said that it was not my problem anymore. She told me that she set up a meeting with him on Friday to ask him for a break to figure out what she wanted. I saw misery on her face. I said that I felt extremely disappointed and I didn't know who she was anymore. She replied that she didn't know either but was determined to find out during her therapy. When I asked about us, she said it was most likely unfixable. I finished by saying that I didn't know if I would ever forgive her and hope she found the answers that she sought during her therapy. Then I left. It was the hardest conversation in my life. In the end, I didn't receive the answers I wanted, and what I did receive was disappointing and insincere. It hurt me that she wasn't honest even when I confronted her. I'm angry at myself that I hope she would want to fix it, and I still catch myself having these thoughts even after a week. This is naive, and I know that. I want to be loved by someone who hurt me so much it's so dumb. I hope these thoughts will go away sooner rather than later. I know I should focus on myself and improve my life, but it's so difficult to move on. I'm angry and jealous that the affair is most likely still going and she enjoys her time with someone else when the corpse of our relationship is still fresh and I'm suffering. Dealing with losing your home and your partner and the feeling of betrayal is overwhelming at times. A ton of you suggested I should report the affair to HR at her company and also blow it up to all her friends and family. I understand the reasoning, and I've already spoken to my therapist about it. She told me that I should consider whether such an action would actually help me or just add to my misery. I've decided that I will do that because it will help me heal from what she's put me through. I want to heal, and it's the best thing I can do at the moment. I feel better when I don't think about her. I plan on also telling her parents and close mutual friends so she doesn't try to spin the narrative on what happened. Hey OP, she is a product of the environment that she surrounds herself with. She chooses to be around shitty human beings, ergo she becomes a shitty human being. Therapy won't change her until she improves her environment. As long as she continues to surround herself with poor influences, the same things will happen. Her relationship with her boss won't last. He'll get what he wants from her and then move on to a fresh target. I just want to say that with time you will become a lot stronger because of this. You will know the signs early and you'll be far less likely to put up with it as long. Moreover, she's broken. What they say about affairs and it being on the person who had it is completely true. Whether it be a perceived flaw that you have or nothing at all, it doesn't change the fact that she went out and did what she did instead of communicating like an adult. That's on her. She's gonna have to forever live with the fact that she hurt somebody that cared about her, and not only are her reasonings shallow and materialistic, but both of them will be miserable before long. It's a relationship that's built like House of Cards. She will never be able to trust him because like who would date somebody that's already in a relationship knowingly, and he will never be able to trust her for precisely the same reason. I wish you the best of luck OP. Now let's get into today's second story. Guys and gals, I'm not doing so well. I'm going to try and keep things as brief as possible because I'm on my phone. I never thought I would ask this, but I need some support. Even if you all are just internet strangers, you are all that I have. Background. My wife, 27 female, and I, 25 male, have been married for over 5 years and have been together for more than 7. We have 2 beautiful little ones together. She is a full-time student. I work full-time. I make enough money for us to pay the bills and eat, but not much more. Our relationship has had its ups and downs. Some points were pretty rough. We separated twice, but we always worked it out and learned from our mistakes and grew together. Situation. My wife and went to town today to run errands. Was not fun. We brought the kids and it was just one thing after the other that kept starting fights for no reason. She started saying some pretty hurtful things, and granted, I'm sure what I was saying probably passed her off too, but I told her I was only trying to communicate about the issue so that we could just address it and be done with it, but she just kept telling me to be silent and not talk to her. When we got home it was around 9 p.m. We got the kids inside and she was in the bedroom getting dressed up. When I confronted her about why she was putting on heels and perfume, she said, I'm going to get dry shampoo. This was obviously a red flag and all, but I wanted to trust her, and she has done this before where she really does go get what she needs and then comes back. As she was leaving I was still just like, let me come with you, your sister can watch the kids for us. She's living with us temporarily. She refused and then drove off. So I do what any doting dad does and I got the kids to sleep. Well, I was also watching the bank account to see if she was being truthful with me. 30 minutes later I saw a charge at the place she was going and I was thinking, okay, everything's good, right? I was just overthinking things. She loves me, right? Yeah, well, several hours passed by and I hadn't so much as heard from her. I was starting to worry, so I texted and called, but I got a notification that I'd been blocked by her. I owned the phones. I was thinking, wait, what happened? Was she okay? Well, as time passed and passed, I was staying awake thinking in my head about every single thing that could be happening while I awaited her coming home. The thought crossed my mind that maybe she could be cheating on me, but I refused to believe that and continued to give the benefit of the doubt. Here's where it got real. Around 5 a.m. she came into the house trying to be quiet and putting some groceries away. She thought I was asleep. She put her phone on the counter and I grabbed it and snuck into the bedroom while she was distracted, and on her Snapchat I found a message she had sent to some guy thanking him for a wonderful night. As she came into the bedroom, I confronted her with an emotional tone of, "I was worried about you, and God, so help me, you better start explaining." Well, when she looked up at me, I saw her lipstick smeared all over her face. Her eyeshadow was smeared and her makeup in general just looks disheveled. Her hair was frizzy, almost like she ran home or something, and her breath from 4 feet away reeked of alcohol. I was destroyed. 7 years of time, energy, money, and love just washed down the drain as my heart fell to my feet. Thoughts of the other guy and what happened ran through my mind. I got pissed and broke her phone right in front of her as I called her out on the bullshit, and you know what she had to say about it? That I was delusional and needed help. That she didn't cheat on me. I continued to go off on her, hoping to get some kind of emotional response from her that would indicate remorse, but none was shown. I'm at a loss. I can't understand this. Am I being delusional here? Is she right about me? Can all of that stuff be explained rationally? Even if it can, I don't know how to move forward because I can't afford a divorce. I married this woman because I thought she and I were going to build a life together for us and our family. Chase our dreams and all that shit. Who does this to someone? Like, really, no matter how much you fight or argue or things go stale. How do you just throw everything away for one night? How is that worth it? I just need support, guys. Advice is appreciated too. Obviously, if she really did cheat on me, I'm going to have to get divorced. I can put up with a lot of shit, but I can't deal with betrayal. I really don't even believe in divorce because of my religious beliefs, but like I said, betrayal is something I can't do. Are there any Christians in here who are also willing to advise? All support is welcomed. Thank you. Hey OP, I do not understand why religious people state their religion for staying with a cheater. She is gaslighting you. You don't come home at 5 a.m. all disheveled with a thank you for the great evening if nothing happened. This guy is probably a coworker. My heart goes out to you. There is a lot of pain coming your way, whatever you chose to do. See a lawyer as soon as possible to see where you stand and take his advice. Search for and read up on the 180 and Grey Rock methods. Implement them immediately. Act as indifferent towards your wife as you can. She will notice. You will notice that she starts acting more attentive. She starts seeming bothered by your lack of attention. By your lack of doing things for her around the house. This will further confirm to you that she is likely cheating. She wants to have her cake and eat it too. Don't let her have that. Good luck, OP. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed the stories, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on today's stories. Take care. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. In today's story, OP found out his wife cheated on him after he noticed who used condoms in his trash bin that looked unfamiliar. He then noticed her affair partner was outside in the driveway, so he confronted both the wife and the affair partner, and now his wife is begging for mercy. In today's second story, OP's wife suggested an open marriage and her life was completely wrecked after it. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. I noticed a few things around the house. The couch was closer to the wall. I kept it away from it because it covered the vents otherwise. A water jug was constantly placed a different way in the fridge. We're both lefties. There was a faint smell of cologne, not mine, that I'd noticed on the couch and in the bed. The confirmation came after I emptied the trash bin. Last week, I put a bag in the wrong way, so things were prone to slip to the side. So this week, 2 days ago, when I was getting ready for trash day, 2 used condoms were sitting in the bin. I checked my nightstand and to my surprise, I found the notorious black Trojan Magnum box sitting at the back of a drawer along with 2 other empty boxes of assorted condoms. I've never bought Magnums in my life. Finally, I left the house to run errands yesterday, and halfway to the first and farthest location, I realized I left my phone at home and decided to head back as I'm useless without shopping lists and reminders. As I reached my driveway, I noticed a Porsche sitting in it. On a hunch, I parked 2 houses down and remotely opened my garage door and closed it as I would any other day. I waited a few seconds and a man of comparable age to my own jumped out from my backyard, shirt in hand, got into his vehicle and sped off. I entered my house to find my wife curled up in her recliner with her face in her hands. I told her that I saw her friend and was going to ask what all was going on, but upon walking towards her, I smelled the dreaded cologne. I spent the night in my car parked in a free parking garage. We haven't spoken since. She seemed happy. I'll reluctantly admit to noticing no change in her behavior aside from being too tired for sex and not being all that interested in cuddling or doing much else in the realm of physical touch, with me at least. We last tried before Valentine's Day this year, but her tiredness began long before that. I want to think I did my best, washed dishes, did my own laundry, helped with hers, took out trash, mopped, swept, spent time with her away from electronics, either reading or watching shows without being on my phone. I won't go on because of redundancy. I'm lost and confused. I'm not a saint, but I don't talk to other females aside from at work or simple hi to a cashier or coworker. I stopped looking at porn long before we got married, among other things, to show her respect. I'd like to know what I did wrong that threw her into the arms of another, but also, I'm probably not in the best place to talk to her yet. Worst comes to worst, we get divorced and I start again or something. That's probably the only scenario. I believe in forgiveness, but I also don't forget. Thank you for reading. Update. I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to the kind souls out here. You hear about it, know someone who goes through it, and you don't think twice until it happens to you. I want to say that I'll be me in no time, but it will take time. For the moment, I am consulting with a lawyer. I'm not wishing to drag this out. The house is a rental. I'll deal with the lease as well. Through friends, I've gotten 2 suitcases worth of clothes out of the house. My electronics are with me and our bank account is just hers with enough money for the week. Streaming passwords have been changed and I found a room with our church pastor. It will be a long road. I'm repeating the phrase, "It's not your fault," as many times in my head as I can. It seems to help. I might move back home or maybe just start somewhere else. I have some marketable skills and certifications, so hopefully that comes in handy. Well, OP, here are my thoughts on the situation. Cheaters usually try to control the narrative by giving their version of the story before yours. You need to anticipate she will and tell all the facts to families and shared friends. You need to drop your atomic bomb first, so to speak, to clarify to everybody once and for all and in no uncertain terms who's the culprit. You did nothing wrong. In long-term relationships, it's normal to have periods when one may feel bored, stuck in a routine, overwhelmed by work, or whatever. Mature adults, however, discuss any issue with their partners, see if they're fixable, and then leave the relationship if no viable solution can be found. Cheaters, on the other hand, are people with colossal character flaws. They prefer to have sex and have affairs with other people behind your back, which in turn requires being dishonest, having a ton of lies, manipulation, and exposing your health to STDs. Oh, and let's not forget, she was denying you sex, not because she was stressed or whatever, but because she was having sex with another dude. No, OP, you didn't do anything wrong. This is 100% on her. This is entirely on her shoulders, and do not ever take responsibility for the trauma and abuse she inflicted on you. I know it'll be hard, but I believe you can get past this, OP. Now, let's get into today's second story. I was married for 2 years at the time. My wife was a serious TikTok junkie who sent me at least 20 a day. We were both in our early 20s. She started sending ones about open marriages and also some podcasts. We had a few long talks about how we were young and should try it before we were old and had kids. After a few months of pushing, I gave in, and we set up some boundaries. No unprotected sex, nothing in our house, and no overnight stays. And if sex occurred with someone else, no details and no touching each other for 30 days, plus a doctor's visit and being cleared before any intimacy between us. We opened our marriage, and she started going on dates on Friday nights. I worked anyway, and I got home normally around 10 p.m. For the first year, it was kind of fun. She went out on a date, and by the time I got home, she was already home or getting home at the same time. She told me what they did on the date, and then she jumped me. They were just dates, no sex or intimacy. During this first year, I myself went on 3 dates, and each one went the exact same way. They found out I was married, and it was not what they were looking for. They told me it was nice meeting me. After 3 dates, I quit. Then one Friday night, she didn't get home until like 3 a.m. She came in and made a joke about being too sore and tired for anything. I saw some hickey marks on her chest and thighs, and I'm not going to lie, I was hurt and upset by this. On Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember, she tried to initiate with me, and I reminded her of rule number 3. She gave me the, "Are you serious? 30 days in a doctor's visit?" I said, "Yes, deadly serious." This became a pattern for us. She went out with her bad boy on Friday nights, had her fun, then spent the rest of the week trying to get me to change rule number 3. To me, it felt like she had put me on a shelf. I started avoiding her, working more, and being out of the house more, even if I was just out walking. I started becoming a lot more physically active and lost some weight. She was fully in a fog of new relationship energy and didn't notice, and thought I was out doing my own thing. 5 months of being on a shelf, I was not seeing a reason to remain in the marriage. I was selling my happiness so that she could be happy, and I was running out of things to sell. Up to that point, she had not broken any boundaries, and every time, I brought up that she should maybe step back from him. She always said that I was overreacting or blowing it way out of proportion, and that it was just some fun one night a week. Our 4th wedding anniversary day arrived, and I took the day off work to make her dinner and clean the house. She got home from work at 4, hopped in the shower, and got dressed up. Then, she told me she was going to a bar to see a local band and not to wait up. She completely forgot about our anniversary. I was destroyed. I woke up Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. She had never come home. Boundary number 2 was broken. I sent her one simple text. "You have broken our boundary of not sleeping over. I am done." At 11:30, she started calling to tell me she had just closed her eyes for a second and passed out. She said that it was an accident, that she was so sorry, and that it would never happen again. My unwillingness to even talk about it caused her to wake up out of her fog a bit. She ended up coming to my work just before we opened and made a scene in front of the whole staff and the owners. I was finally able to calm her down enough, and she left. I promised that on Sunday we could discuss it. I got home from work Saturday night, and she once again tried to have sex with me, and I again reminded her of rule number 3. She then told me that she would no longer be seeing him and wanted to close the marriage and work on reconnecting with me. It seemed that she had freaked out when she woke up there and saw my texts, and that he had made fun of her, and she realized how much of an asshole he was. She tried every day to be intimate with me and failed badly. At that point, I had no need or want or desire for her. She was a roommate, barely. 30 days went by, and she went to the doctor and got checked out. She was clean of diseases, but was pregnant. Not sure where her mind was with this, but she came home excited and told me we were pregnant. I told her that I hoped they would be happy together. She looked at me confused for a few minutes and then started crying. A few days later, she sent him a text telling him. His response was, "Wow, sucks to be you. You might want to pass it off as your husband's." I filed for divorce soon after. She started doing anything and everything to change my mind about the divorce, making promises, begging, pleading, offering everything under the sun and asking for a chance to fix us. I was polite and nice about it, but I wasn't having any of it. I was stuck living with her for a while until our lease was up. We fell into a new pattern. She tried to be intimate with me. I turned her down. She got upset. I went for a run. My resentment of her was growing just like her baby bump. 3 weeks ago, she came into my room to talk. She brought home pizza for dinner and started talking about how, with being pregnant, she was super horny all the time, and she tried yet again to have sex with me. I, at that point, was running out of politeness. I told her, "Sorry, I'm not into fat chicks. Maybe hit Tinder. I'm sure someone on there would be down for it." She left my room crying. Also, we had our first divorce hearing, and the judge slapped 6 weeks of marriage counseling on us, court ordered. We went to 2 sessions, kind of a meet and greet thing, talking to us separately to get our stories, I guess. I just wanted it to be over so we could move on with our lives. Last Sunday was my birthday. On the Friday before it, she asked me to spend my birthday with her to celebrate it. I declined her invitation. She kept pushing the subject, and I snapped. I told her that I didn't want to waste special occasions on her anymore. The last one was our 4th anniversary, in which she went out to get knocked up by some pothead loser. I left her crying in the kitchen, headed to work, and told her I would see her on Monday for our court-ordered waste of time. Monday morning, I was at marriage counseling. She never showed. I called her. Nothing. I called her friends. Nothing. I called her parents, and I found out she got arrested Sunday morning for DUI and reckless endangerment and that they were on the way. I offered our house for them to stay at. I had a couch at a friend's house. My lawyer went to the judge and expedited things. My divorce finalized this past Friday. Yesterday, I helped them pack some of her stuff, and today I'm going to help them load a U-Haul they rented. She gets released tomorrow, and they're taking her back home with them. She wants to see me, but I feel that will just be worse for the both of us. We both need to move on. Wow, OP. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Open relationships typically don't work. Open marriages in particular. She wanted to have her fun and have you for stability and the backup plan. What perplexes me is the audacity of her expecting you to care for a child that's not biologically yours, as if that detail shouldn't matter, and that your marriage should just go back to how things were before, as if her actions had no impact or would have no consequences. Don't sign the birth certificate until DNA conclusively marks you as the parent. You should have started talking about a divorce the moment open marriage was discussed. If you're not into that, it's just sentencing the marriage to a slow death sentence. Also, in general, wives will have many more options in an open marriage. It's clear she doesn't love you, but she was afraid of being alone. It's time for you to move on to bigger and better things. I wish you luck, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's stories. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.